Hey, my friend, welcome back to the MindShift Podcast. As always, I'm excited to have you here. Appreciate you taking some time out to spend it here with us. I'm excited to introduce to you today my good man, my friend, A. Lee Judge. He is the founder of Content Monster, a content marketing agency focused on creating multimedia business content such as videos, podcasts, and virtual events, then helping marketers to squeeze the highest possible ROI out of those assets. He's got a background in effective communication through the C suite, from marketing to sales, and is the key to his unique positioning in helping businesses strengthen their overall selling strategy by optimizing the marketer's role across the business while integrating business processes, sales operations, and customer experience. Now, Lee and I have known each other for a number of years virtually, and I had the pleasure of being on his podcast called The Business of Marketing Podcast. You're in for a rich discussion with someone I highly respect, have a tremendous amount of gratitude for allowing me on his show, and I'm happy to welcome in my man, A. Lee Judge. Lee, what's going on?
Darrell, thanks for having me, man. You know, we always learn something from each other each time we talk, so I welcome the conversation. Good to see you again.
Absolutely. Good to see you as well. Just let our audience know where you're joining us from in the world today.
I am broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia.
ATL in the house. Let's go. So, listen, Lee, you and I have known each other for a number of years. When we first met, you were both a corporate executive as well as an entrepreneur. Tell our audience a little bit about your backstory as it relates to your corporate experience as well as starting your own business.
Yeah, well, Darrell, I've always had some kind of business going all my life from 10th grade when I started my first DJ company. And when I say company, it wasn't just me DJing, even though I love DJing. My first contract was with the high school I was attending. And my next contract was with the college I was attending. So, if I was there, I was probably had a contract with somebody. So all through college, I had businesses, mainly DJing businesses, and then um, I come from an entrepreneurial family. So the interesting thing was though, the whole creative part of me was always a business. It was a service business creatively, whether it was creating music or DJing. And then professionally, I was a marketer. I got into the business world and I began working with different companies to, you know, help them gain contracts and market and gain market share. All that time, those two worlds stayed very, very separate. Until around 2017, the company I worked for gave me the job title of digital marketer. And I wasn't even quite sure what that was at the time, but I realized, oh, I can start bringing in some of my creative stuff once the internet got to a point where you could transmit video and audio to your clientele. I began creating video for the company I worked for. I was hiring agencies originally, but then I realized I don't like how these agencies are creating stuff for us, or they don't understand the why. Like, why are you making this video for me? It has to make some business sense. I understand your creative part. You want to make it beautiful and cinematic, but I need this to help me drive my business.
Hmm.
So in 2017, I had a company reach out to me and said, "Hey, I saw the video you made for the company on LinkedIn that you work for. Was that you or was it an agency you hired?" And I was like, "Well, kind of both. I produced it because I'm the marketing director and I also was the agency, but it wasn't an agency at the time." So that was the birth of Content Monster, my current agency, where I saw the need. The need happened, and I just happened to understand the business aspect and the creative aspect. And so now I get a chance to, live in the marketing world and live in the creative world at the same time. And the fun continues where there's always this balance of, yeah, it could be beautiful and look beautiful and sound beautiful, but there's also a limit to that, to where it has to make business sense. And of
Hmm.
course, the recent AI trend hasn't changed that. But that's
Ah,
where I'm at now, Darrell, and I'm happy to be in a place to celebrate both creativity and business.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that when they asked you about was that created by you or an agency? You're like, kind of both. It was me
Yeah.
because I was the producer, and it was me because I was the
Yeah, it
agency. I
was
just
my
didn't have
camera,
it
my
yet.
equipment. Yeah, I need to get it done, Darrell. And
Yeah, man.
the agencies were either charging too much, taking too long, or thinking about the art too much.
Yeah.
And by the time I explain the business need and the creative scope for what I needed, I could have just produced it. So that's what I did.
That takes me to a question. And obviously, over my years, having not just been an agency, but working with a lot of outside agencies to fulfill specific skill sets we didn't have in house, talk to me about what you said earlier in the beginning, which is this, or yeah, I read it in your bio, turning these assets into ROI. We're at a
Mhm.
mature stage, a more mature stage in marketing digitally across social media to understand the power of video. We don't have to look too far to TikTok, to YouTube, to all
Mhm.
the platforms now. But let's talk about the ROI of content marketing, the ROI of what you guys do specifically, which is in the world of video. I think our listening audience could really, really benefit because I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs, we've been told we need to do video. Everybody's
Mhm.
saying we need to do video. So and so said that we need to do video, but it feels so hard. And then, well, what is going to happen on the other side? How do we make money with the video? Let's talk about that for a little while.
Yeah, the funny thing about especially video, Darrell, is that a lot of companies don't even start because of their preconceptions of what it takes to do video. They assume it costs so much. I did a poll on LinkedIn. It's almost been a year now, and I said, for a talking head video, how much do you think it cost? Uh, 200 to $1,000, 1,000 to 5,000 to 10,000, 10,000 to 20. I think something like that. It's those ranges. I got almost well over 100 responses, enough for me to say, okay, that's a significant response. And it was broken down evenly, 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. They evenly had their opinions of what it cost.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, okay, one person thinks it costs $20,000. Another one thinks it costs $1,000.
Hmm.
Like, where is this gap? That tells me they don't know. They don't even know what it costs.
Hmm.
And that reminded me of the origins of Content Monster when I hadn't formally made the company, but I was looking for a vendor to create video. And I took the video that I had made in house, sent it to vendors and said, hey, I need a video. Here's an example of what I need. What will it cost you to make it? And I got one of those $10,000, $15,000 quotes back, went to their website, and it's a guy sitting in the back of a big box truck, like he's on a movie set with big giant lights and big cameras. And I'm like, okay, no wonder why he's quoting so much, because that camera, that red camera is going to cost him thousands of dollars. He's got a lot of equipment to pay for. And none of that is necessary to do the business video that I needed.
Hmm.
And this is pre TikTok, pre YouTube shorts. Um, but it was still, we still had YouTube, Vimeo, and all those things for video, for business video. And the video that I had made at that time, this is 2016, 17, we probably spent less than $1,000 on the video, including my time. And that made me realize, okay, there's a place here to create things much less expense. That's the first step of ROI. It's just not spending as much in the
Right.
first place. And so we began with, you know, prosumer digital cameras that still had a very high quality. If you know how to use it, that's the key thing, is knowing how. I didn't have the know-how, but we realized that companies did not know. And so even today, companies say, oh, we can't do video, it's too expensive. Have you found out? Have you looked at it? Have you investigated what it really costs to do video? And so now we do video remotely, and part of our biggest challenge isn't selling, it's educating. It's telling the customer, look, the thing that you want. We had a customer recently that we initially lost. They came back to us later on, but we initially lost them because they said, we want this kind of video and we want to do it in a studio. And we're like, why do you want to do it in the studio? Oh, well, we did that 2 years ago and we loved it. We loved going to the studio and we did this and we got this video out. And we said, okay, we hear you. And we're thinking in the back end, like, they don't need a studio for this.
Right.
Then we showed them some videos on our website, and we said, do you want something like this? Oh, wow, that's better than what we did in the studio. Yes, we want that. We want that right there. Where's the studio at that you did that? And I was like, that was done in their office. And I said, look, we have a kit that we have lighting, a microphone, and we use your or our own iPhone and an app that lets us control the lighting and the aperture, all those technical camera things we can do with an iPhone. So we recorded in 3 different cities that day for less than you would pay for one video.
Mhm.
And the thing you said you wanted, that's it right there. And we didn't need a studio for it.
Mhm.
And so again, our hardest part isn't selling, it's educating. And that customer said, nope, we need a studio. They went away, they went and did their studio. The studios in Atlanta, and you're going to pay a few thousand, for a day shoot. They spend some money. Their output was not nearly as good as what we've been doing remotely.
Yeah.
And they came back to us for the next video shoot.
Yeah, I love it. I
So,
love it. And I appreciate that because I do remember when we first met, and I got to understand your video model by way of doing it remote. And just so we're understanding, we're not just talking about recording somebody on a Zoom
no.
broadcast. Just beyond that. But I want to ask this question. Talk about the use cases for the type of content that you guys create for your clients. I know it varies, but
Mm-hmm.
give out the top 2, 3, 4 use
Yeah.
cases for business video today that are most prominent with your customer base.
Okay. Well, the top 2 or 3, and most of them are talking heads. So that is either the expert in your company, saying, it could be, in fact, we have a analyst firm. It could be analysts that are talking about this new research. It could be someone in the company who's a subject matter expert talking about something. Um, it could be a podcast where we capture video during the podcast and then we recreate more content like you and I are going to do from this conversation. You create more content from that recording, but it's at a high enough level where it is, high quality recording. The other thing is customer testimonials. And then, because it's video, we have some different use cases thrown at us we didn't even expect. We've done a couple of courses this year for companies. They said, look, we need to do some screen share, but we have experts who are going to talk through the whole thing. The thing is, they need coaching. Like, you just said something, but you missed a word or you mumbled through that. Let's get that take again. Let's get that one sentence again. Or you've got a hair out of place, or you bumped your mic in the middle of that. That kind of coaching lends to a really nice end product, right?
Mm.
And I think that part is underestimated. So we've done courses and for learning management systems that was not, it's not on our website yet. We need to add it, but we didn't expect that. But it's still technically talking head and video editing. Now we do, if we need to go on site to capture B-roll, we can do that. We have partners that, around the country that might show up and say, let's shoot some B-roll of your factory or something. But
Mhm.
our primary use case is helping executives up their video game to look better on camera. And it just doesn't take a full crew to go on site to do that
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. No, it certainly doesn't. I can't help. I got to get this question out of the way. AI in the last 12 months specifically has just blown up across the universe, especially in the marketing space. It's a great win for all of us, I think, in many ways, and I think it's going to fall short and cause some folks to get caught up in um, what I would call lack of true effort mentality because they think
Hmm.
the AI is going to spit it all out. Talk to me about how you see AI improving what you do in your work, and also what are the traps that people are going to misunderstand about AI that I believe, and hopefully you agree, video fixes.
Well, the other day I was looking at someone having a roof put on their house, and this great analogy came to me about AI because you had one guy who's on the roof with a hammer and a nail. He might have been finishing something, but it gave me this picture. Another guy with, I guess, a nail gun. And he's just, boom, boom, boom. He's walking as fast as he can walk. He's dropping nails, pow, pow, pow. And I'm like, okay, two guys doing the same job, potentially. One guy has a very modern tool. That's how I see AI. Now, both of those guys had knowledge. They knew where to place the nail, why they were placing the nail, what would happen if a nail's in the wrong place. They had to still have the knowledge of the carpenter to do what they're doing. But the guy with the power nail gun was much faster, much more efficient, and got a lot more work done. That's how I see AI. AI is not going to teach you how to do the thing, but if you know how to do the thing, you'll do it much faster, more efficient. And we are all in on AI, but at the same time, we don't give AI to just anybody on our team. It has to be somebody who knows the craft in the first place. Then apply AI to what you know.
Yeah, I love it. I've been saying it to people. I said AI is gonna, if you know what the output's supposed to look like, AI will be your best friend. If you have no idea what the output's supposed to look like, you're going to get made to look like a fool because you're going to
Yes.
trust the AI and present it to someone, and you're going to get smoked. And I mean,
Yeah.
literally, I've seen it for the last 12 to 18 months because we were using AI before ChatGPT took off and blew the world up, but now it's even more evident with ChatGPT. Where I have an opinion. I'd love to get yours on video being the authenticator of your brand, your true brand authority and expertise, something that AI can't do. And I get it. We can do we can do our own custom GPTs, and I know we're getting there. But I still think for a long period of time coming, you can't fake that authenticity that comes through video. What's your take on the use case of doing that versus pumping all this stuff in and having auto chat GPT create these auto videos for you?
Well, in one of the many 2024 predictions that I contributed to, I think it was maybe CMI's, but I mentioned the word soul. We read some of this stuff from ChatGPT and it just lacks a soul. You can tell as humans, and I think over the next year, we're going to start learning our radar of whether there's a soul behind what we read. Our radar will get better and say something about this doesn't feel right. Like you may not realize why, but you're like, wait a minute, there was no opinion, or they didn't
Mm,
get happy or angry or sad or draw an emotion out of me. There's something soulless about that. So I think that's going to be the differentiator. That's going to be the authenticity we're going to be looking for. Um, in terms of going all in, even I absolutely intend, if not this year, next few weeks, beginning next year, I'm going to make an AI version of myself. I'm going to make a video avatar of myself, and go all in on fine tuning it so that it'll be hard to tell if it's me or not.
mm,
But where the soul injection comes in is that it has to at least be saying what I wrote. That
mm-hmm,
way my soul is still involved.
mm-hmm,
Even if I use ChatGPT to help what I write, it has to have some of my opinion, some of my thought in there. And the further you get from having a soul, the deeper you're going to get into trouble with people believing or the authenticity of it.
mm-hmm,
So, I mean, I've been training a Chat GPT bot or GPT bot on how I write.
mm-hmm.
And I have to update it pretty much weekly to say, you know what, I wouldn't say that. I would say this. I wouldn't say that.
Yep.
But no matter how close it gets to me, and here's where the use case comes in. If I'm explaining to you how to use Salesforce, you don't need a soul for that. It's factual, right? So as long as it's written the way I would write it and it explains the fact, you don't need my soul. But if you say, Lee, what's your thought on the meaning of life? There's no way in the world that's going to come out with a soul if I don't write it, right? You
Right.
have to have some words and some I, some me, some opinion, or I think, or
Yeah.
and with video, as you and I are talking, we're gonna pause and say and there's gonna be some things that are, some perfect imperfections in there. And, as a musician, I remember being thrilled when I could play a guitar on my keyboard and it had all the finger sounds, like if your finger just taps a string or you run your finger up a string, all those sounds were programmed in to where most music we listen to now, even a guitar, maybe it's synthetic, right down to every little imperfection, every little finger that hits another string by mistake, that can be programmed in.
Hmm.
The same is going to happen with video and audio over the next year. There'll be pauses and breaths and expressions. Over the past year, I remember when, not to throw any shade at Synthesia, but they were one of the first on the market with,
Mm-hmm.
video avatars. The shoulders didn't move,
Mm-hmm.
eyebrows didn't move. Those
Yep.
are little things. Those are soul things. The eyebrows moving, looking away when you're thinking. You know, they've improved that. Other companies have improved that to where now we're seeing eyebrows, we're seeing shoulders move. That's within 8 months or so. So I give it year and a half tops before it's going to be hard to tell the soul isn't there,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is scary. But again, it's use case. Even right now, some things don't need a soul. But year and a half now, unfortunately, that's election year. It's going to be difficult to tell what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
But back from a business standpoint, though, I think you have to go all in as a business. If we don't, we're going to be out of business. We won't be as fast or as efficient. We're transparent to our clients that we're all in on AI, but we also say, look, there's a line because you hired us for our expertise. You hired us for our soul, for our knowledge and experience. That has to stay in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Good points. Really good points. Speaking of a year and a half, you have now had, I believe you've been once again, because you've been an entrepreneur for a long time, but this new venture, 18 months roughly in since you left corporate. What's been one of the biggest bright moments of your last 18 months running Content Monster?
Wow. Uh, you know, some of that's kind of wrapped up in the whole pandemic situation too. Because prior to leaving corporate, my wife left her job because we were homeschooling the kids during the pandemic. And she just got a master's degree in biotech engineering. So kudos for her for leaving her job when she just got new degrees. But she left her job, began working for the company. Um, and so I guess technically she was the first full-time employee of the company. Um, and so for me to make that leap as well, that's like, wow, we're 10 toes in. Like both of us are gonna leave our jobs to run this company. And so the key the drop the needle that broke the camel's back for me was my last year in corporate. We're running on about 4 people in the company working. I'm working full-time job still. My goal was to have a certain number of people in the company before I quit my job. And so I had a LinkedIn newsletter go out. I didn't know that the president of the division was on my list. So
Of
he
your
got this
corporate
newsletter
division.
of my corporate job that I
Uh
worked for.
oh.
Yeah. And so we were connected on LinkedIn. I didn't know LinkedIn would send out the newsletter to everybody I was connected to. So first I'm like, wow, I got 3,000 subscriptions to my newsletter in the hour or two. Who does that? But that was the LinkedIn way of sending it to everybody.
Ah.
Next day, I got an email from my boss saying, hey, my boss, him saying his boss, sent him an email that says, check out this Lee Judge guy because I just got this email about this company he's running and I want to make sure he's still working and make sure he's not running this company. So I had to I sent them like LinkedIn profiles of my employees and said, look, I didn't even write the newsletter. It was scheduled by my assistant, written by someone else. I wasn't even, so I had to prove that I wasn't running the company. But that was a wake up call, Darrell, because I'm thinking, if I'm working for a company that's that critical about what I do on my
In your
off
off
time,
time. Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, if I had said, hey, I watched football all night, they wouldn't have no problem with it, right? No problems at all. I would come home and jump in HubSpot and look at accounts and do some go to market work. That was my hobby. It wasn't sitting on the
Right.
couch watching football, right?
That's right.
The boss was off skiing for the weekend. I was working my business for the weekend. So my previous jobs all knew I had businesses, right? My first job in Atlanta anyway. I said, look, I'm an entrepreneur. I'll always have a business. She said, give me 2 years. I gave her 12 because she
Mm.
never restricted me. She encouraged my jobs, my companies. Second job, I went in there and said, look, I really want this position, but I want you to know that I'm an entrepreneur. I have these things, whatever. They said, we don't care. We're entrepreneurs ourselves. Do your thing. I was there for almost 8 years. When I resigned, the CEO took me out to dinner and said, "Thanks for being here so long. If you need support, we got you." They became a client.
That's
And
right.
so this last gig, it only lasted a couple years, maybe a little bit more. But the last year or two was like, why are you stifling me? What's such a big issue? And so they helped me make the jump. I wanted to make the jump anyway, but they certainly helped by being so suspicious of my free time. And I said, you know what, Lee, you're going to regret it if you don't do it. So do
Mm,
it. So I made the leap. Within a few months, I was hiring more full-time people. We're growing, we're doing things. I've made it this far. I'm not in debt. So the
good
business
for
is
you.
chugging along. It's great. It's great. We have some really great clients doing bigger and bigger work every month. And I don't regret it, Darrell. And I would encourage anybody, if you have entrepreneurial spirit, make a plan first, but make the leap eventually.
That's a mic drop right there. Make a plan first, but make the leap eventually. I love that.
Yes.
You also started a podcast, have a very hot podcast. You've had some unbelievably big names on the Business of Marketing podcast.
Like Darrell
What
Evans.
Hey, I appreciate that.
Like you, man.
We're talking about some names a little bit bigger than Darrell Evans, but I definitely appreciate that. Some of the people that I look up to in the industry, most notably, probably that I can remember, Seth Godin. Uh,
Yeah.
One of the absolute finest um, on the planet to ever do the game of marketing and do it in such an authentic way. Happy to share a virtual stage with him and just a whole bunch of other folks. But talk to me about the why did you start the podcast? What is the purpose and mission of the podcast, and how does that align with? I mean, it seems like it's gotten you connected with quite a few of some of the biggest names in the marketing space.
It has, and that's the key thing, Darrell. I don't measure my podcast, and I tell all other businesses not to measure your podcast by standard podcast metrics. I don't care about downloads or subscribers or those kind of things because that isn't where the value is. Um, you mentioned Seth Godin. So I had a client once who, I guess, came into our pipeline somehow. They began receiving our emails. She subscribed to the podcast. She saw Seth Godin on the podcast. I remember months later when I met this prospect on a call, she's like, if you guys are able to land that kind of interview, or if you're having those kind of conversations about marketing, we know you know your stuff. Like, you didn't just come from nowhere and start having these conversations. So that's how I measure my podcast. Like, the quality of the conversations we're able to have with people, like yourself included. We learn from those people. Um, our clients learn with us. Like, this person subscribed to the podcast or began listening to the podcast in around June. We're having this call with them around October. We didn't know about them between June and October, but they knew about us. They've been listening to
Mm,
the podcast. So, beyond emails and beyond SEO, they have been giving us an hour of their time once or twice a week, from June to October. So they knew us when we had that call. They knew, they had heard me speak all that time. So that's how I measure the podcast. And it's been important to me because of the relationships, um, the learning, because, I never do pre-podcast interviews because I want to be genuinely curious when I talk to someone. And so I may have three pre-planned questions, but from there, if you're the guest I think you are, I'm going to have more questions while we're talking. Like, wow, Darrell, is that so? Well, how'd you do that? The questions I'm asking, I really want to know. I'm not asking
mm,
just for the sake of having a conversation. I want to know, and I figure my guests, I mean, my listeners want to know too.
yeah,
And so I'm asking questions not only for me, but also for the audience. And then the output of that is I'm helping people by giving them information. I'm asking Seth questions that even he admitted he hadn't been asked before, which was a great honor to me for Seth to say, wow, I haven't been asked that before.
yeah.
So my audience hears it. I get to learn from people like you and Seth and lots of other folks. And so those standard podcast metrics, I don't even look at them because the
Yeah.
relationships and the business is what matters.
I love that. I love that answer. And I can concur that over my 4.5 years of running the MindShift podcast, number one benefit has been the relationships worldwide.
Yeah.
Worldwide. So I couldn't agree more. And that would lead me to my next question, which is for the listener who has thought about video, and I know that you guys help with videos as well as video podcasting. Talk a little bit more about the reason why going into 2024 and 2024 someone should really be considering CEOs, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, people that want to elevate their brand. Talk a little bit about how you help brands, CEOs, founders, thought leaders elevate their content creation and distribution through your service at Content Monster.
Well, Darrell, one of the first things is one of the basis of where Content Monster started was helping people get the biggest ROI on their content by means of repurposing it and chopping it up and making sure they're hitting all the places they need to hit, all the channels. But from that came, once podcasting began leaning into video, we realized there's so much more output from video than there is from other means. So in terms of podcasting with audio, sure, you have the audio podcast itself. You can do audiograms, you can do snippets, but you're missing out on YouTube Shorts. You're missing out on TikTok, Instagram Reels. There's certain channels you're missing out on. Even with email, you could email and put a thumbnail of a video in there. They'll get you more clicks from that video thumbnail than from just the audio or audiogram thumbnail. So while just audio and audiograms still work, the output is so much more. The ROI is so much higher. And even if it costs more, for example, I'm just going to throw some numbers out. Suppose you're spending 30,000 on your audio podcast a year, and you get a quote that says, well, for 45, you could do video, or for 50, you could do video. You might go, wow, that's 20,000 more than what we're paying for audio. But your ROI, your output from that could be 5x. For a 2x upgrade, you're talking about 10x output. So, like right now, you and I are recording this, you're doing video, you're going to use video, I'll use a video, we'll chop it up and we'll share and tag each other and tag other people. There'll be a ton of output. I mean, I have output from my video podcast still going out from a year and a half ago, right? Because if it's still relevant, it's video, it's still going through. So that's the biggest thing. Video has a much, much higher ROI. It may cost more, but the ROI is higher. And then outside of podcasting, just capturing the expertise. We have one client who their business structure is they have lots of agents around the country. And we're recording those agents telling their story. So basically, maybe like, hey, I'm Lee. I'm your local agent for this insurance company or whatever it may be. And I love dogs and walks in the park or whatever, we coach them to make it way more natural than that, obviously. But the output is it's within compliance of that company, but it's natural. It's it almost appears to be user generated, but it's not, because we help coach them in to make that output, and we can do it at scale. So we may do thousands of videos for this company, and within a structure that can meet their company compliance, their company branding. We can edit it, make it look good. All those things can be done within a framework at scale. And now this company will have thousands of videos that are branded in their name and with their team members from around the world that they can use in social and their email, newsletter, their website. All that kind of content we'll be creating. And I think just in the past year, that's become a new thing for us. In fact, we're going to try to coin user generated in a framework, UGIF, I guess we'll call it, because it's their users, but we're providing the framework that makes compliance happy, right?
Yes.
Legal compliance, financial compliance, health compliance, that gets in there too. And also compliance with their graphic team to make sure the right lower thirds and colors are matched. So we're doing all those things, which allows them to create content at scale. And video is the leader in that right now.
Boy, I tell you, you're doing it well, man. You're a modern media company, really, that is taking a really heavy lift that I know many of us face. And in my background and our agency's background, we had a full service video production studio for a number of years. Big fan of video, been a big fan of video since 2007, since my early days of YouTube and recording on a camcorder and Firewire and all that stuff. So I've been, I can't recommend video high enough, strong enough. Whenever we run campaigns, video must be a part of that equation. And so, where can people find you, connect with you on social, connect with your agency for deeper conversation about what you can do to help them?
Okay, well, there's two main places, Darrell. For the agency, it's contentmonsta.com, MONSTA, contentmonsta.com, and that's where we do all the media production for businesses. We help businesses become their own media companies. And then for me, it's aleejudge.com. With or without the period, it still gets you there, aleejudge.com. As we talked earlier offline, my own personal focus, I've been so far involved in sales and marketing that I'm in the middle of a book on sales and marketing. And so the aleejudge.com, you'll find the public speaker, the trainer for sales and marketing. And then on Content Monster, you'll find everything about making media for your company.
All right. Do you have a name for the book yet, or keeping it secret for now?
I do, but I got to keep it under wraps.
Understand. Well, listen, we are going to link up everywhere to find Lee, aleejudge.com, constantmonster.com, and make sure you know exactly where to. We'll probably link up his LinkedIn. He's very, very, very active on LinkedIn, shares tons of content. We'll link up his YouTube channel as well, where you can check out all of what's happening with the Business of Marketing podcast, and so many guests that we just highlighted Seth here, but so many big thinkers in the content marketing, really in the leadership and content marketing and sales space. So Lee, I just want to say this as we wrap up. I appreciate the work that you're doing, the leadership you're out front with, and really producing a solution that makes it easier and simpler for brands to get their content marketing working at a higher level, working more for them than just sort of the linear way that it's always been done. Every business owner or CEO, founder, or C-suite person I've ever talked to, the first thing they talk about is we're not getting a high enough ROI in our marketing. And so I love the fact that that's what your purpose is. So thank you for our connection as well. And thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Darrell. Thanks for having me.
Listening audience, content marketing should be at the forefront of everything you do. It leads in front of ads. It leads in front of your writing on your blog, communicating. I'm going to say it until I am proven otherwise. Video is one of the key components to building a brand, elevating your thought leadership, and really communicating trust in advance of the sale. Lee's company is doing it well. Lee is a guy I know, and I trust that if you reach out to his company, you're going to be well taken care of. If you're listening today and you haven't yet subscribed to the show, I'd invite you to do that right now. Hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you're listening or watching to this show so that you never miss another episode. And until next time, I'll see you on another episode of the MindShift Podcast. Take care. Hit the subscribe button so you can become a part of the MindShift community. We'll help you shift your mind so you can shift your results.